Hello and welcome to the Expanded Woman podcast, where we talk about all things spiritual, personal, and business development. I have a guest speaker on today. Her name is Rosaly. She's a soul alignment coach and healer and the founder of the Purifying Place. I would love to hear from you, Rosalie, a little bit more about what you do, and we'll kind of start to dive into your story a little bit more. But if you could just kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm a soul alignment coach and healer. I've trained in Reiki up to master level. And like with many other people, that just kind of activated things. And I've always just been a sensitive, intuitive person. But what really drew me to Reiki was um, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, um, depression like symptoms, I should say, and just not feeling good in my body. And so I tried Reiki and I had a very profound transformational experience where I decided I needed to learn how to do this. So I trained all the way back up to master level. And then so it really was just me navigating my own healing journey, as with many people in this space. Um, and after I learned how to do Reiki, I realized I still didn't feel like I had all the answers. I felt a lot better. My nervous system was a lot more relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
although the question was like, well, what do I do with this? Like now that I've had these revelations, these experiences, um, then what am I meant to do with this? And I didn't feel completely grounded. And so I got the intuitive hit to learn how to do coaching, to do spiritual life coaching, because naturally I understood I needed to apply this to which my life to integrate it. And so I signed up on the spot for spiritual life coaching. Once I found the right person, again, I have that intuitive knowing, and I learned how to do that. And from there, I've kind of created my own um, framework that I lead my clients through. And it's essentially like what I've done for myself to heal and to return to my wholeness. And I know a lot of people in this space do the same thing, like their journey, like through their healing, becomes their offer. So
Yeah. Yeah, their medicine for themselves. Yeah. And I love that you're talking about this part too, because I feel like there's a lot of people in this space that are just like learning and then just starting to do the things because they just like want to start a business, but they're not actually like integrating it and embodying it. And it makes such a huge difference, I think, in this space. Like people for like what people can read from your energy and just kind of what you have to offer.
I that is so spot on. Like some of the first clients that I had just wanted to start a spiritual soul-led business and like, how did you do it? And and I'm and it's interesting because I tell people like there is no like you can start a business, but you're going to keep hitting the wall if you don't do the inner work, if you don't do your own healing, if you um and they don't want to hear that. They want they want
Yeah,
to just kind of
they want
go.
it like
So
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I totally know what that feels like. Yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, and it's interesting too because I never meant to start a business. Like I wasn't intending to start a business. It was just me wanting to help myself and not suffer anymore. Um, and it's interesting. Like I definitely felt called to start a business during like I had I went into the Akashic Records and I had a really another profound experience where two light beings told me like you need to start a business or you will start a business. And they specifically said it will be called the Purified Place. And here I am.
Cool. That's so awesome. I love that so much. Um, and I think that's how a lot of people start off too. Like I never intended to start a business either, but then somewhere along the way I was like, oh, this is this is what I'm being called to do, you know? Like, did you have like kind of like a feeling inside that was kind of like pulling you towards it? Like, did you always have that like calling to like help people, or how would you say it kind of
That's
like led you? other than just your own healing?
Yeah. Great question. I feel like I definitely have this natural thing in me to want to serve and help people because I'm a teacher as well. That's what my main, my career that I started in. And I've been teaching for more than 10 years now. And it's interesting now that I'm doing this healing work, how much is in alignment. So
Yeah.
it's been a very smooth process. But I guess what I want to say is I did really feel called because part of why I'm here is because I had this really hard experience when my daughter was born at 23 weeks, extremely premature, 1.5 pounds at the beginning of COVID. And like just the darkest days of my life, like with rock bottom. And going through that experience now thinking, why is this happening to me? Am I a bad person? Am I being punished? All that, you start to question yourself and question your experience. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because before that, I was already kind of building my relationship with Source, with God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And so it's interesting how I started becoming more intentional. This major disruption happens in my life where, again, I start to question, like, I felt like I was doing the right thing and I was building that relationship with God. And now I feel like I'm being punished? Um,
Hmm.
and it was just, there were so many reasons why she wouldn't have made it. And still, again, I heard the voice of God tell me, like, Lily will rise from this, just like her name says, Lily Rose. Even though, again, darkest moment of my life, spiraling down into hopelessness, I held on to that knowing and that voice. And 5 months later, she's out of the hospital. She's 5 now. She's doing perfectly well, 100% whole and happy. And I remember just it's interesting now having the awareness that I have now. I recognize now that that was very much an initiation
Hmm.
and a way for me to fortify that connection I was already doing with spirit. And it was really showing me, like, okay, now you need to know how to keep that frequency, hold that energy all the time, despite what's going on in the world around you. And so this was a very chaotic thing. And although I wasn't perfect, because, part of the human experience is experiencing all of it, although I was able to fully get out of that victim mentality and recognize I always had the choice and that sovereignty to choose my experience. And so now I really paired that with the unconditional love I had for my daughter. It was really God's way of showing me that this is how we should love everyone. And
Hmm.
that deep peace that I felt, even though my daughter was suffering and I had to go through this surgery and all these things, I can have that all the time. It didn't have to be in just this moment or these 5 months. That's how we're meant to live our life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's such a powerful story, and it's so hard, I feel like, when you're in the thick of it to like pull yourself out of that that energy because it can really swallow you up like really, really, really bad. So that takes like really incredible strength. So yeah, wow, thank you so much for
I
sharing that.
I love that you said that and it's interesting because when people are trying to create something in their life, they feel like they have to be perfect. And I
Mm-hmm.
always share like this experience because I was just constantly like, it was just, me thinking, oh my gosh, she's not going to make it. My life sucks. And all these things, like the roller coaster of emotions. And it's interesting because the day that I went home from the hospital, I was again spiraling. I was so anxious and sad and fearful. And I immediately, just like I heard God's voice, I heard people say, oh, it's the devil or whatever it is. But it told me, like, well, just kill yourself then. Because and it really showed where my emotional state was at. Because
Mm-hmm.
immediately I heard the voice. And that was also a disruption that kind of woke me up to say, like, okay, well, I could do that, or I can make the conscious choice to um choose something else.
Yeah, that's kind of confronting. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
let's not go down that road.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a super crazy story. And like you said, there was like the ups and the downs. Like you weren't like it wasn't like you shifted your energy and you just stayed
Mm.
good the whole time, right? Like there was, would you say like you would kind of fall back into it, but then it maybe would like get better every time? Like you would be able to pull yourself out quicker or
Yeah. I it's interesting because it was, anger and sadness, deep sadness, all these things. Although when we would go into the hospital, it's interesting because it was COVID and I thought, oh, great, another thing on top of what we're already experiencing because nobody could go visit her,
ugh,
just myself and my husband, and we couldn't even go together. We had to go separately.
oh my
And
gosh.
so we weren't even like a full family until much later. So I thought, again, but now I'm realizing again, it was a way for me to face my deepest fears. I say by myself, but I wasn't alone. It was really with God, right? Leading the way.
Yeah. But
And
it can
it's,
feel like that though.
oh,
Like when you're
totally.
in the
Yeah,
suck, you're like, I've been abandoned, I'm alone. Why did you do this to
100%.
me?
And it's interesting too, because that the abandonment thing was also very much something I was meant to heal and a lesson I meant to learn in this lifetime.
Mm,
Um, and so going into the NICU, going into that room by myself, really was facing it. And it's weird. I got this feeling and I got this knowing to just go into that room with the highest frequency possible that I could and put my hands on her and tell her I love her. I'm grateful she's here, saying all the things to help keep my frequency at that state. And I didn't know it then what I was doing. I was just kind of intuitively going with what I think would help. And I was also studying Joe Dispenza, and I,
hmm.
read a lot of Napoleon Hill and the experience he had with his son. And so I was kind of like gearing up to do my best for the
Yeah.
situation. I like trained my husband too. Like when you go in there, make sure you're not scared. Make sure you're not sad. Like, I mean, it's okay to have that. I'm not telling
Yeah.
you fake it, but hold that in the space of gratitude because we can still have this really hard experience and still be grateful for it at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like you said, we still have to feel our feelings, but like we also can't stay there all the time. And we will stay there all the time if we don't learn how to shift into that like gratitude and that those more positive emotions for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and if people are like, how do you live in alignment when things are hard? And I feel like gratitude is a big one. And then
Hmm.
also going through something like this really forces us to hand over the control.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
we're wanting to control everything when it's interesting. People want control over their life and they want this best outcome, but they feel like they have to work so hard at it. When you really discover the truth of who we are, you recognize you can just be and receive and um, choose to access that divine source within you to lead the
Yeah.
way, and you put
Yeah.
yourself out of the way, which seems counterintuitive because we're human, we're so used to working. So
Yes, absolutely. So what would you say like what's the like how do you make that into like a tangible thing? Like how do you actually live that out? Like what is your day-to-day life looking like when you're, in alignment and you are receiving, but you're also like taking those aligned steps? Like are you working way less than you were? Um,
mm, yeah, I think it's really being aware of the state of energy I'm in when I am moving. So
mm,
am I moving from a place of I need to get that thing? or am I moving from
Mm,
a place of wholeness where I recognize nothing is outside of me? Nothing
yeah,
is out of my reach. In fact, we're all that is. And how can I move from a place where this is why my work is also really focused on conditioning because people are outwardly striving for things and which is fine. We can have desires, but it's also like
for sure. Yeah.
they don't even understand why they want that thing. Um,
Mm,
and they think it's going to solve all their problems. All when in reality, I feel like most of the clients that I see who want like a certain type of goal or outcome, what they're really seeking that I've seen in common through all of them is freedom, true
mm-hmm,
freedom,
mm-hmm,
peace,
mm-hmm.
and love,
Yeah.
unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just common across all the board, but they are thinking they're going to find it in the weight loss, in the relationship, in the business, um, when you can access all of that now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I love that you like brought that into this, and I also love like that piece that you brought in about like almost doing like a check on yourself, like where your energy is, like what's the driving force be behind what you're doing. Because like even for me in my life, like I notice that I will get off track. And when I get off track and I start, doing to like reach and like search for this feeling that I'm trying to attain, that's when I start to like burn out. And I'm like,
Mm,
oh,
yeah.
we're not balanced.
Yeah, and that's so true because when you describe that in the obtaining, we're outsourcing our energy. We're giving away our energy to something, thinking, I need that, so I'm going to throw all my energy at it. When
Mm-hmm.
really we need to come from a place of wholeness where we're being replenished by God, by source, by universe.
Yeah.
And we're constantly receiving that energy because we're not separate from it. And when we move from that place of wholeness and that experience of knowing that we are everything, we don't have anything that we don't, that we're not never lacking, then we create the space to receive it
Yes.
instead of pushing it away.
And it's not like somebody said this like in this kind of term the other day. It was like turning up the dial. And like obviously if like freedom isn't something that you normally experience or like peace or love are not things that you normally experience, you're not going to be able to go in and like all of a sudden turn it on, like turn it all the way up to a 10. Like we have to ease into it because our systems actually can't hold all of that and it's actually overwhelming for us. So we kind of have to like like look for those things, but I almost feel like sometimes it can be like turn into a job. You know what I mean? And then once it
Mm,
turns into a job, you're missing the whole point.
yeah, because we're again, people go back into the mental plane and that's why the integration and you know breath work and all that somatics is getting really popular right now is because so many people were into the spiritual aspect of you hear people talk about galactics and energy, all the
Hmm.
different types of energy healing and psychics and all these things, which is great. Although we're still human on this earth and having this human experience, and so to integrate that into our being, um, and go back into our bodies, because also our bodies are holding traumas and conditioning and things that we need to release, not just in our energetic body, but our physical body as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, it can turn into like an escape, you know? And
Mhm.
yeah, we need to come back home into our bodies and be connected to our bodies and like what's going on in there. Yeah, absolutely. I was just wondering too, like when you're talking about going from like teaching to coaching, that must have been like you probably already like it was probably easy for you to start coaching after being a teacher, was it not?
Well, it's interesting because the school that I teach at is a trauma-informed school.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're already practicing a lot of these social emotional things and teaching the kids meditation and
Mm-hmm.
visualizations and all of those things. And I realized like I thought, okay, why are my students so successful? Because every year my students surpass, we just had like our org-wide meeting and I got a medal again, like, out of the whole organization. But it's because I don't treat them like a victim. I'm realizing, and it's interesting how this spiritual work is also, again, same thing. How do you shift from victim mindset to creator consciousness? Growing up, I felt like it was really easy for me to do that with children because I thought, oh, well, they don't know any better. And so I'm going to have this high standard for them. I'm going to lift them up and do all these things. Whereas in the past, I would see adults and I would judge them. I was like, you should know by now, or why aren't you doing
Mm-hmm.
this? Um, and maybe even just co-validating their victimness and all the things like that was going on with them on both sides. So now I recognize now that I'm stepping into coaching and through my own inner healing, I realize, oh my gosh, we need to just have that standard for everybody and and see everybody in their wholeness because you don't do anyone service by looking at them as a victim and
Yeah.
pitying them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. You have to speak to like the winner version of everybody. I went started working with a coach and she'll be like, "Don't talk to the loser version of them. Talk to the winner version," because we all have that like, and not to be like mean, but we all have that
Yeah.
version of us that's like pouty, like wants to be a victim or whatever. For some of us, a very small piece of us, but we all sometimes have that. But yeah, I love that. Talking to not making them be a victim and speaking to the strong side of them and empowering them, really.
And it's interesting too, like just thinking of like a physical classroom. All my years of teaching, people will come into my classroom and say, like, I don't know why I feel so peaceful. Like, I just feel so calm in here. And I always thought, oh, it's because I know how to design. It's interesting because it's also feng shui based without me realizing it, flow of energy. But I
Mm-hmm.
also realized people could feel my energy in
Yeah.
that container. And so now I hold space for my clients as well. And again, I've just naturally have been that person where people come and find me and start telling me like their traumatic experiences and everything that's happened to them. And I've never told anyone this, but and at some point I would try to help people, like my students, including and adults, whatever it was. And at some point I realized I have to do better. Like I can't just have this good intention to want to hear them and support them or whatever, but I have to actually equip myself with tools that is going to help them. If I really want to say I'm a giver,
Yeah.
and that started with myself. That started with helping myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how long after that whole experience with your daughter did you go on and start your business?
Yeah. So I had my daughter in 2020, in May 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. And then I started training in Reiki, I think I think it was the 2021, the next year, because even after she was born and after those 5 months, I was kind of just doing my own inner journeying. And it
Mm-hmm.
led me to learn about the Catholic faith, which was very interesting because I was getting a lot of symbolism from Jesus and Mother Mary and,
Mm,
resurrection and all that was built in my experience. And so a lot was illuminated for me learning I decided to go through the whole classes and process of initiating into the church so I could learn about it because there was something there that kept calling me. And I'm happy that I did it because not everything I subscribe to, because there is this, you know,
some rigid belief
yeah,
systems. Yeah.
there are some projections in there, although there is a lot in the Bible and in rituals and things in the church and just Jesus' story and all that is pointing to truth. That's pointing
Yeah.
to And I think it's so interesting how God led me down that path of learning all of that. After I went through that, I was teaching at a Catholic school at the time, actually. And I was so happy. And something happened where I had to quit my job immediately because the new principal that was hired was just pushing people out and just kind of being nasty with people. But
Mm-hmm.
I felt like again that sense of abandonment where I was like, why did this get ruined again? Where I thought I was on the right path. I'm learning about you, I'm getting closer to you, I'm realizing who you are more and more. And this disruption happens. And that was like another like dark night of the soul moment for me where I just don't know. It just, I literally could see, like, I couldn't function. Like, I would see vibrations. I couldn't get up out of bed. I was exhausted all the time. There was just something that happened where I couldn't function. And so
Yeah.
that's when I saw the Reiki person because the doctors had told me there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine, your blood work's good. And I'm like, then why, when I look around, it literally looks like the world is shaking constantly. So when I saw the Reiki healer, I felt I had this very profound experience again, which led me to learn all the things. But yeah, sorry, I forgot your question. um, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we forget
Yeah.
whatever you're telling your story. That's perfect. I'm curious to hear like if you want to share more about your experience, like your profound experience that you had with Reiki, if you feel open to share about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was, honestly, it was just um my heart was just like cracked wide open in that
Mm,
experience. Like I could feel it still, and just things that I saw, like different spirits or whatever you want to call them, and
yeah.
just like it's just like this full immersion and experience. And I still don't quite remember exactly like what happened, but I just knew it was powerful. And I remember seeing like my daughter's spirit or her energy, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just so huge and vibrant and white light. And at the time, I was, because of what we experienced, I didn't realize I was still very much in survival and probably experiencing post-traumatic stress because of what, we went through. And I
Yeah.
was projecting this victimness onto her,
Mm,
thinking something bad's going to happen to you. Like, how could it be true? And still doubting, even though there was nothing wrong with her. She's perfectly miracle, healthy, whole, and thriving. It really woke me up to recognize, oh my gosh, if this is my daughter's spirit that's so powerful and strong, and seeing her as this vibrant, healthy, whole after what she went through, why am I projecting this fear onto her?
mm,
Because she's not afraid. And so that really illuminated that the fear was coming from me. And
yeah.
that's why I created that experience. I participated in co-creating that experience. And that, again, that I was already on this track of taking more and more responsibility for myself. And that even, um, was this huge catalyst for me then to work on myself because I realized the fear was coming from me. And
You were like, well, I don't want to
her,
pass this down to her.
yeah, and it's interesting because what I went through was her was really a wake up call for me to recognize what's in me that I haven't seen and haven't been
Mm-hmm.
able to release. And then, yeah, that's why I learned the Reiki. And so I felt, I got a lot of answers there, and I really learned how to work with my energy. And I really learned a lot about myself because I've always been this very sensitive person. And now I realize why, because I was hearing, like, part of my things is I can hear or feel and know things about certain situations or people. And because I didn't have any boundaries, it was just a mess. And
Mm,
part of the reason why I was so anxious growing up and so sensitive and all these things. So Reiki really helped me figure out, like, oh, what is really mine
yeah.
and what is others, and kind of discern that and help me clear my energy. Because I think you asked in the intake, like, as a 6-2, like, mental projector, very sensitive,
Mhm.
absorbing, amplifying energy, I never cleared my energy. And after I learned how to do that, I was just like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I feel
Yeah.
so much better just learning that and like Reiki level 1. And so I was like,
Like
okay, I gotta go all this.
doing self Reiki kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just clearing
Hmm.
out my chakras, clearing out my field. And now it's not even like an exercise. I'm just always doing it. I'm
Mm,
just always, I'm always receiving and knowing that I'm sourced by God. And
Mm.
now I don't have that. Now I'm fully energized. Like, yes, I get tired, but I'm never that tired. Like, where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like dragging on the floor. And people look at me and say, how did you start a business? And how did you, now you're creating a course and you're writing a book. And how did you do all that in such a short amount of time? Because that really all just happened within the last year. And I tell people like, now that I am truly sourced and I'm not outsourcing my energy to relationships
Mm-hmm.
that I've been, and that's like a whole nother topic about narcissists and energy vampires. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
again, victim consciousness, when I could acknowledge I was giving away my energy because
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was. I wasn't healed. And coming from a whole place, there were no leaks anymore. I was just receiving. And so this huge amount of energy came for me to do these very aligned projects.
Yeah, that's so cool. So when you're talking about being sourced all the time, is that like a process that you took yourself through, or is that just like a state of like a belief state that you kind of started
Yeah,
having? Or you like visualizing that source energy just
yeah,
coming in all the time? Like how? Tell me
that's
how.
so interesting.
Tell us
Yeah.
how.
So, at the beginning of Reiki, when we're learning all those things, and it's a very like ancient meditation, the three diamonds meditation, where you're receiving this divine energy, you're receiving energy from the earth. And I mean, I don't know exactly, I don't remember exactly how the original one went, but I always felt it purified through my heart. Like,
Mm,
so I'm constantly receiving that energy and it's purifying through my heart, purifying my field. And so that connection to God is what sources me, is what fuels me. So I don't need to look for energy anywhere else. And that I just live feeling that and knowing that. There are other things too where I clear each chakra and I imagine an energetic sponge, just absorbing all that's not meant to serve me or that's dense, opening up a portal to Mother Earth and just squeezing it all out and then closing it back up again. But those are just a couple that I do very routinely.
yeah.
Um, but I feel like again, it's just something that became just second nature.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's like when you first start giving Reiki, you have to like visualize it or whatever, right? But then once you've done it for a while, you just for me, I just rub my hands together and I just put my hands over top of wherever I'm trying to send it and like that's all I need to do. It just happens automatically. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and really in the beginning, it probably was happening automatically anyways. We just weren't
Yeah.
really aware of it. But
Believers. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And and I love that you said that because remembering how I was at the beginning, just constantly thinking, is it working? Is this really working?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And just now looking at who I am and where I'm at, I'm like, whoa, how did that happen in such a short amount of time? And I think as people, again, begin to have their own experiences, it becomes undeniable. It
Yeah.
becomes undeniable. And
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's funny too, because what was it? I remember being in the hospital and talking to God and telling God, like, okay, if she really does rise, like you said, like I will be a believer, like 100%, because this is wild, like overcoming brain bleeds, a hole in the heart, just honestly being resuscitated at birth, being on, you know, a tube to breathe, all the things. And still, even after all that, we have doubt. We
Yeah.
still have doubt. And it's interesting. I heard this phrase that I think is so true. It's like it said, miracles don't create believers, revelation does.
Mm,
And I 100% believe that to be true. That resonated so much because when we have our own divine experiences with God, that's when we become believers because
yeah.
we cultivate that relationship, that connection until it like strengthens and it gets more and more strong.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I forget how powerful Reiki is too. And it's like even like there's still times where it's like the brain starts to be like, what? Like what are we doing here? Like because you can't see well, I can't see with my eyes. Some people can see with their eyes, but I always like to share this too to like anybody who ever has like doubts too, because like I have done some group Reiki shares in the last year and I feel energy, like I'm a big feeler. And I just remember thinking like, oh, it probably won't be like quite as strong because like a lot of these people, it's their first time giving. And there was like absolutely no difference between the people giving for their first time and the people who had been giving, like
Mm.
have been like facilitating Reiki for however long. I felt the same amount of energy coming from everybody's hands. So that was like a really cool, like kind of like a next phase in my beliefs, I guess, about like what is possible. And it's just, even just goes to show like you don't need any training, it's just intention.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I love it.
Yeah.
Such, yeah, we're no different than everybody else. People can access it. And again, like I said, even before I trained in Reiki, I was intuitively doing that in the hospital without even realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's so cool. That the process that you talk about, like what did you call it again? Your process that you do for your clients, the one that you use to heal yourself. What is it called again?
So the framework, whole process is it's interesting because I'm turning it into a program now in the works, but it's very much focused on deconditioning first, through the coaching and then facilitated with Reiki to help clear all those things. And then just to guide them to have their own, again, those divine experiences within themselves because
Yeah.
we're so much an information culture where people feel like they can read something or hear something from someone and think, oh, I can do that too. Like, and you can. I'm not saying you
Yeah, yeah,
can't.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I'm just saying, um, be open to learning more and be open to not like learning as in mental plane, like getting lost in there, but
Yeah.
be open to the unknown because I've noticed so many people want to feel like they know everything in order to
Hmm.
start or in order to serve or in order to teach or coach. We have to be, it's interesting. This is something I've always taught my students too, is we have to be willing to say, I don't know,
Yeah.
because there are things we don't know. We're humans.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, and like you mentioned, there was no difference between someone just starting and a veteran Reiki healer or whatever, right? And what we don't realize is this is a co-creation between us and our clients. There is no
Yeah.
hierarchy. When we can level that plane and come from that unity consciousness of we're here to remember the parts of us in order to be whole again. And
Yeah.
not create this divide and the separation of, oh, well, they don't know and I know and all
Yeah,
these.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that was like a thought that came up for me, like when we were talking at the beginning. I can't remember exactly what, but it was like I have my journey, you have your journey, and like the reason we tell our stories are for those who are going to resonate with, all of it or pieces of it. I think it's so important to share, but everyone's journey is going to look different. And it's about accessing that inner guidance and that inner wisdom to figure out which steps are right for you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I might have certain like pieces that I'm like, okay, I know you need to set boundaries with your time and your energy. And, I know you need to like get clear on what you want. You don't have to know exactly what you want, but you just have to start like taking those steps. Yeah, it's just I love that like and like that's what I'm doing too is like the coaching and the healing because I feel like you can't have one without the other. Like people have to learn how to like go into their bodies and like figure out what their truth is. And what we're doing is we're just holding space for them. And it's such a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because again, these very abstract type concepts would need that real world application, that integration. And even in teaching, we teach these concepts to our students, they need the real life world application. They
Yeah.
always ask, well, what am I going to do with this? Why do I need to know this? Da, da, da. So it's nothing, it's not different. And I love what you said about trusting that inner guidance system, because that's exactly what I do in coaching too, is like after we've deconditioned and got through that gunk that's kind of weighing that down, because people are trying to follow their intuition and their inner guidance system, but it's through this filter of their trauma or their conditioned
Yes. Yeah.
experiences. And
Hmm.
so when we can get to the root of those and kind of unearth those and rewrite those subconscious beliefs, we really set them up for success. Because, and I've been there too, where I was very much into personal development when I was trying to change my life. And I kept thinking, like, why am I not getting the outcome that comes so easily to some people?
Yeah.
And the missing part was that the subconscious. And when I dug in there, I was like, whoa, no wonder I wasn't successful. Because,
Yeah.
not to make excuses, but I was we were working against our own operating system without realizing it. And so when we can be in alignment with all of that, things flow much more effortlessly, and people can really truly hear what's meant for them, as opposed to thinking they heard it, but it's going through this filter of their trauma. And it's a
Yes.
and it's a trauma response as opposed to an aligned action.
Yeah. And also too, like I always spend so much time at the beginning of the session to like help help my clients like ground into their body because when you're not in your body, you're in your head, right? And you're usually when you're in your head, the thoughts are just flying around and you're not able to access that like to me my like and you were talking about your heart like to me my inner wisdom is in my body. It comes from my heart, it comes from my belly, like you know what I mean? It comes from all the different sensations that are telling me, speaking to me or whatever. Like it's very somatic. So it's like being dysregulated all the time. You can't access that inner wisdom because the noise is too loud. So it's like you have to be able to quiet that noise to actually come into your body and then find that peace and that safety in your body so you can,
Yeah.
access it. Because for some people, for me, I know when I first came into my body, I was like, "Ooh, I don't like it in here. No wonder I've been trying to escape,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty common for most people. It's like they're not connected to their bodies because it has felt yucky in there. So they're like, "Nope, we're doing other things. We're staying in the head, safer up here, distracting ourselves, all the things."
Yeah.
Hmm.
Stuck in that mental loop. And it's true. It's like the mental, when you're always thinking, that creates the anxiousness, that worry, because you're constantly thinking about, okay, what's coming or what was, instead of being rooted in your present moment and
Hmm.
experiencing it through your bodily sensations.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I just love what you shared about that whole being source thing. I'm just still thinking about that, and I'm like, I just love that piece so much. I think it's such an important like takeaway, and I think that we block ourselves from being able to receive a lot of the support. You know what I mean? Like even in those
Mhm.
moments where we feel like we're being abandoned, it's often because we're not we're like blocking ourselves from being supported for whatever reason. Do you find that to be true?
100%. And it's interesting because when you said we think we're abandoned, when we're thinking we're
We're in
abandoned,
a victimhood.
yeah, and we're really abandoning ourselves. We're
Yeah.
disconnected from our truth. How do we return to that place of who we truly are? And that's a process. And I feel like knowing what I know now and feeling what I feel, I know there's still more. There's always, and because, our job is just to continue to stay with God, which is funny because we're never separate from God. And it's interesting, this was like another huge breakthrough that I had just recently, where even though I'm coaching and helping people now live in this aligned path, and I am too, there was this next level of where God was showing me like, and you hear all that stuff about this is the year of the snake, it's time to shed the old and all
Mm,
that. And so that very much aligned in this vision that I saw, where God was telling me, like, you're still living part of you is still like you still have one foot in the past, and
Mm.
I need you to stay with me. And it's interesting because this kind of links to like years before, and I was talking to go in the car, and the song came on. Sam Smith's all like "Stay with Me," and he was basically telling me like I felt the knowing, and I could hear like all the things, the voice and everything. But he was basically saying like, "Oh, just stay with me. That's all you need to do." And so the question is, well, then how do I stay with you? And this is why we have to let go of knowing everything. Like we can know the truth, but we also have to be open to receiving the answers because our infinite selves are not going to be held in just this human vessel. While we have access to it, it's just it's just a lot, right? It's
Yeah.
everything. It's all that is. So when he was telling me just stay with me, I was like, well, what do you mean? I am like I'm talking to you right now, and I lead my life this way now, and all this stuff. And now that I'm in this, I'm very much, it's interesting that we were talking about the conditioning too, because I've reached this point where I'm like, okay, the more and more I do this work as I help my clients and also help myself, the more and more I'm not living from that past self anymore. The more and more I'm embodying the creator and creating something new. And so there was a part of me that was still scared of, well, what is it? Like, what am I getting
Yeah.
into? What am I creating? And it's the theme that kept coming up was distrust. I was distrusting myself, my own abilities, my intuitive gifts, just starting everything. Even though I've seen the success, I felt, all it's like I'm doing everything right, but there's still this part of me that has this distrust. And I didn't realize I still had like one foot on the old path, um, because and I was like, well, how am I still there? I'm not a victim anymore. So what's keeping me in the past still? And it's so interesting because it was a story. It was still, and it's even though it's an empowering story, it was still a story. And and so when I tell you the story of my daughter and I share that and I'm writing a book about it now and people love to hear that story, God was like, I was there and I'm still there, but I'm also not there. Like I'm not there anymore. And so you
Yeah.
have to recognize, yes, that's a part of me, but it's not the whole of me. And so how can I move from that place of just letting go of that story and not letting it define me so much? And that was painful. It was painful because I
Yeah.
thought, well, that story helped me know you better. That story helped me get over or get through the hardest part of my life. Do you see how that's again
It becomes like
identifying?
part of your identity. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
again an illusion, a false identity, because now I'm identifying too much with the human experience of me as the one that did, what? When I'm not that, I'm the awareness. We are the awareness. We are the whole. And so when we can get so fixated on a part, that can ruin our alignment a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so when I can make peace with that and release that and acknowledge it and just even just hold the awareness of it, I can move in a more free way because the truth is I don't know what the future will bring. And that's
Yeah.
not my job to figure it out. Yes, we are creators, but there's also part of us that doesn't know everything. So I
Yeah.
have to have that trust and that faith that it's all going to work out and be even better than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just listening to a podcast this afternoon and where they were talking about like how we have obsession with like attachments to certain things, like attachments to control, attachments to not being able to live in like the unknown, like needing to know like what's happening next, that kind of thing. And so it's interesting that we're like kind of circling back to this
Mm.
because it's like and I'm going through right now like where my whole life is I'm in the unknown right now and it's like it's super uncomfortable and it's so hard not to like fall back into that victimhood and into like that fear and to be fully in trust and it's like it's really like what we were talking about at the beginning it's like a little bit of a roller coaster you're like yeah, I'm so good. I'm so supported. This is so awesome. And then you're like, oh my God, it's so hard. I'm gonna die. I'm dying.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like it almost feels like you're like I'll be like a little bipolar sometimes, you know. I'm like one day I'm like I'm dying, the world is ending, and then the next day I'm like God is great, love and fairies, rainbows, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
And you have the awareness of it, so you get to choose what you're
hmm
creating.
yeah,
And that's again, that's why I could feel so much rage, but can't be aware of it at least, and then consciously choose the energy I'm going to step into and create. And I think that's the fun of it. Like when you kind of are aware and you catch yourself, you're like, oh, I
yeah,
I am feeling like this, and I know it's an illusion. I know it's just my flight or fight or my nervous
yeah,
system, and let me again create an experience that validates that it's not that anymore. I'm
yeah,
creating something
exactly. And
new.
taking a little bit of time to actually like sit with what's coming up and to process it, you know, like I feel like if you avoid it, then you're just kind of like you stay a little bit stuck. But when you can sit down and like actually feel it and like, okay, what's underneath here, then it's like then you start to move on to, you know, feeling back into flow and
Mm.
alignment more quickly.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because it's like what we said earlier when people want to just kind of rush past everything, and it's like you said, it's that slow moment where you can feel your nervous system dysregulated or coping with something, and you take the intention and the time to slow down and tune in into your body. Where is this coming from? And really ask yourself, I always ask myself, like, what is it that you need? Like, I tune into that space where it feels tight or the tension or whatever it is. And I'll say, well, what are you feeling? And, anybody could do this. Is what are you
Yeah.
feeling? What do you need? And I always ask, like, how old do you think I am too? Because that's very telling about where it kind of comes from.
Mm,
And it's surprising every time, and that's part of the work, that's part of the creative process too.
yeah.
um
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we'll start to wrap up a little bit here, and I'm curious if you have anything that just kind of comes to mind that you want to share with the listeners right now about maybe something that you've been going through, like a piece of advice that you want to share, or what pops up?
hmm,
Anything popping up for you?
let me see, what should I share? I feel like you hear a lot about authenticity now and how people are like, you need to be authentic. And I think it just goes back to what I said earlier about cultivating your own connection with source, with God, with the universe, and be open to receiving that divine guidance, because people don't realize you have to initiate it. You
Yeah.
have to be the one to initiate it. And even if it's like, I look back at my journey before I even started this whole process. It was my first year teaching, actually, like 10 years ago now. And I was teaching at a Lutheran school and I
hmm
had to teach religion. And the kids just had this just beautiful, like rock solid, like relationship with God. And they just believed so much and they had so much love in their heart. And I just thought, you silly people, like, how sad. Like, you guys don't, this is not true. Like, thinking that. And
Yeah.
they just had a conviction about them, and they just loved people so much, including myself, so unconditionally. And they would tell me, like, and I was honest with them. I said, guys, I have to teach you religion, but I this isn't my strength. Like, can you help me? And they did. They would tell me the stories and all the stuff. But yeah, one of the students was like, you just have to pray. You just have to talk. And I was like, huh. So I started doing that in my car.
I
And I
pray
would
in
say,
my car
okay,
too, actually, a
yeah,
lot.
me too. It's the best, isn't it?
Yeah, it
I love
is.
seeing all the little synchronicities and stuff, like on
Mm,
like signs or like
Yeah.
license plates. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just, and even if you have that doubt, just put it out there and you will
Yeah,
be surprised.
you're allowed to have doubt.
Yeah, we're allowed to. And that, again, your own divine experiences is what's going to cultivate. and create that conviction. I feel like
Yeah.
people want conviction. Again, they want to be like, I know it, I know it. They want
Hmm.
to have the control. I realize the conviction comes when you fully trust. When
Yeah.
you, is
It's almost a
confidence.
decision you have to make, I think.
Yeah,
Like, okay, I'm going to trust that the decision that I'm making is true for
yeah,
me and what I need to do and not question it.
100%. Because when you do it with full trust, you allow that flow of energy to move through you more effortlessly. And you
Hmm.
receive more. You receive it instead of clouding and muddying it with your doubt.
Yeah.
Um,
Like if I have doubt come up, I'm like, no, 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 no.
yeah.
No, we're
Yeah. And you,
doubting. We don't need to do that.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's so true. And it's like, cultivate that experience. And even if you have doubt, like ask yourself, where is this coming from?
Hmm.
Because the self-doubt and the distrust in yourself and ultimately in God is because of something that happened that disconnected you from that truth, which again goes
Yeah.
back to the deconditioning. So
Hmm.
allow your self-doubt to still serve you in that capacity because all of our feelings are teaching us something about us, bringing us, because God is always speaking to us so that we can know God even more deeply each time. And our process here on earth is to just continue being aware of those signals through our emotions, through our bodily sensations, through our experiences, through who is in our field, and take that full self responsibility to cultivate that relationship.
Hmm. I love that. This has been such a beautiful conversation. And I'm sure that you guys can sense it, but I'm looking at you and you just have such a glow about you, but it's not even just like the way you look, it's just your energy. You do have like just that beautiful, open, grounded energy. And it's really beautiful to see and to witness and to just kind of, be in this energy with you. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful that to have you on the show. And I'm just curious, like, where should people come find you? I'm gonna drop your links in the show notes, but is Instagram the best place to find you or?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, I'm on Instagram at The Purifying Place. I'm also on YouTube, The Purifying Place, and my website, thepurifyingplace.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Please reach out to either me or Rosalie if you want to chat about anything that we kind of talked about today. But yeah, we'll see you guys soon, or we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye for
Yeah.
now.